I'll vote to accept the minutes as presented.
Can we approve the agenda?
Sure.
Oh, can we do it together? I can't.
No, all right. Motion to approve the agenda as written.
Second.
Okay. All in favor? Anyone opposed? And the minutes?
I make a motion to approve the minutes as presented.
Second? All in favor? Anyone opposed? Okay. And we're gonna move,
Make a motion to move to executive session to receive legal counsel regarding preliminary plat review process.
is there a second?
Second.
Anyone opposed? Okay. We'll be back. Okay, we took no action during the executive session, and now we will start with our new business. Oh, I'm sorry, do we need a motion to come out of executive session? Oh, no, we're good? Okay. So moving on to our first item of new business, the Haverhill.
All right, good evening. Marion Ray, zoning planner for York County. Make sure it's on. You're giving me a hard time. All right, our first item on the agenda tonight is Haverhill Subdivision. It's owned by Homes of Christopher, but its applicant is Homes of Christopher, but the owner is Edward Johnson. And you'll see here, it is on the corner of Shiloh Road and Old York Highway. It is just north, about 300 feet. There's a spare lot in between the development and Old York and the train tracks there. You might be familiar with the area. The Dollar General is here on the corner with the light right across the street, to give you a landmark there. All right, here's the proposed plat for Haverhill Subdivision. You'll see here it is several lots going down the hill. The grade is to the bottom of the hill there where the cul-de-sac is. That's where a lattice tower, cell phone tower was approved 15 or so years ago. And the subdivision goes straight down to the tower. There are multiple lots around the edges, and then the corners there are open space and tree save areas. And you can see the proposed pathway as an amenity for the open space. So we'll go to the findings here. All right, Diane. There we go. All right, number one, the site will be serviced by public water. There is public water in the area, York County water, but there is no sewer in the area. So it's going to be public water and private septic systems. They do have a smaller lot size here for a septic system. They will have to get the SCD permits before they can make those lot sizes. So we will need the individual permits for each lot before we can do the final plat on those. It is allowed single-family residential use there. It's RD1, which has a maximum gross density of 2 dwelling units per acre. This one maxes out at about 1 unit per acre. They did do a Tier 1 TIA. It's completed, and no mitigation is required. There were some notes in your staff report about trips, that kind of thing, just a quick overview of it. They do provide adequate street connectivity and pedestrian facilities. They were required to have a sidewalk per code, and they did provide one along the length of Haverhill down to the bottom of the lane. The mail kiosks are down there also. And they provided their 20% open space as required of the new code, the open space ordinance change. And they did do a tree survey of the required tree save areas, and it's been completed and accepted by staff. We did have a couple of recommendations for this one after some further review by staff. We recommend that provide additional buffering and fencing against the adjacent industrial zonings to the east. There is an industrial use to the east. It's a large equipment rental company. And we also recommend the walking trail currently stubs out onto Shiloh. We recommend curving that around to Haverhill to create kind of a loop. And then we can get rid of the 2 diagonal pedestrian paths. And I drew it up for y'all in color. I had a little bit of fun, but John Gass needs not worry about his job. So the blue is the trail here, and you can see along the front of Shiloh Road, I curved it back over to the road so you'd have a continuous loop instead of what is shown on the proposed plat of it coming out onto the road and ending there. That way we can get rid of those dark black diagonal trails through the middle of the neighborhood. That would be easements on private property. We can get rid of those if we have that loop. I did kind of loop it in the bottom right corner away from the building that I kind of the gray box there, kind of showing you can get away a little bit in that area. But one of the things I really like about this one is the cell phone tower has a easement road to access the tower, and they're reusing it, part of it, for the trail, which would be a nice, flat, already maintained area. The red line is where we recommended fencing and buffering. Kind of it's a vacant land, and the building over there, large machinery. it has use in the future to be a heavier use instead of vacant right now. And then the yellow line is the sidewalk that is proposed. So I was just kind of giving you an idea of what the entire site would look like from a pedestrian standpoint, at least. So do we have any questions for staff?
Yes, I have a question
Yes, sir.
about the fence. You said the one property is vacant right now, and if it comes in later,
It's zoned industrial.
industrial?
Yeah.
So wouldn't they have to provide a buffer and indoor fencing?
They would, yes, but right now they do not have to because it's not it's not developed right now, but it
Okay.
is part of the property, and they can park machinery back there, that kind of thing, but they haven't developed it.
Okay, but is the fence required by code?
No, sir. It's just a recommendation by staff.
Have there been any other instances like this where we're developing up against industrial and we,
This one is a
Required
little
fence.
unusual. Most of our development has been up against agricultural residential uses, and not a lot has come up against industrial, especially this kind where it's kind of a small scale industrial. Usually our industrial zonings are large areas. So it was one of those situations where it's not per code, but it would be a good idea to protect the pathway, the people walking along it, so you have more of an experience instead of, I did not do that, there we go, more of an experience instead of just having a trail.
but if the industrial site were to expand later on, they would
Yeah.
be
Any site
required
plan
to
that they would have
buffer
submit.
and, so,
It's a recommendation.
okay.
So when you say undeveloped in terms of the industrial, they're just parking vehicles? I mean, is there a safety issue?
There's no safety issue, it's vacant land right now, but the front part of the property is also zoned industrial, but it's a lighter use, where the back edge of the property is a heavier zoning for industrial. It's currently not being used. If they wanted to come in and do a site plan, they would have to show buffering against the area, but right now, there's no restrictions on parking machinery, that kind of thing back there.
Thank you.
Is machinery currently being parked back there?
Yes, the front part of it, well, not currently. They have the opportunity to. It's a large machinery rental for commercial and agricultural uses. So there's no restriction, it is their land.
Are there any additional questions of staff? Are there any motions?
I will make a motion to approve without the requirement for the fence.
Second.
But you're saying
Are you saying
to leave
two
the,
okay? Does your motion include number two?
My motion does not include number 2. There will not be a fence.
How about the first one?
There,
Yes.
they will
Include the,
redo the
reconfigure
trail.
that? Okay.
Yeah,
So it's just the first condition.
yes, just the first condition.
Any additional discussion? All those in favor? Anyone opposed? So moving on to our, the 2 new roads for Kettlesong York Prep.
Yes, ma'am. All right. 2 new roads here. It is Runnelbush Road and New Indigo Street. They are owned by the land is owned by Indigo Rush and Pine Tuck Holdings. This is part of the Kettlesong development, give you an idea for landmarks. It is down south of I-77 along Mount Holly, north of the county line. And this is the preliminary plat submitted. I put a box in to kind of show you what we're looking at. It's pretty busy. There's a lot going on it. So the red box shows you where the roads are that we are looking at tonight. So I went through the findings, and you may remember this from about 2 months ago. They're pretty spare since it's just roads. We don't need a willingness and capability letter or DHEC permits, so these are not applicable, number one. This thing does not like me. Number two, density is not applicable, and neither is a traffic impact analysis. This is roads, not a usage. Number four, it does provide adequate street connectivity and pedestrian facilities. The roads themselves, their New Indigo terminates in a roundabout, which does provide additional access to additional future developments. Rattlebush Road terminates in a temporary cul-de-sac, which will be able to be developed later on. And each road does include a 5-foot sidewalk along each side of the road. They are not required to do open space and buffers, so it's not applicable for number 5. And then number 6, between the last time we were here for the roads, they went to the Zoning Board of Administration and got a variance to remove trees. There was quite a bit of working back and forth, making sure all of that got in line. They worked with staff very tightly to make sure we got the correct trees, make sure the roads didn't move from the first iteration, that kind of thing. So they were granted an appeal to remove 22 grand trees at the August meeting. There were 6 grand trees of that total. It would have been 28 trees, but 6 of the grand trees were not in good condition. So staff agreed that we could administratively remove those. So we placed 5 conditions on the approval, or zoning board placed 5 conditions. You could read those there. You have to, the civil construction plans of the proposed roadway must be approved prior to the removal of the grand trees. So the construction plans have to come in on the road. Applicant shall mitigate the loss of grand trees with plantings in substantial conformance with the mitigation plan. Our landscape architect is at work on that. All mitigation plantings shall be complete prior to the release of improvement guarantee funds for the proposed roads. So that's above and beyond. They have to get all the plantings in before they can get their bonds. The applicant shall submit a tree protection plan which adequately protects the remaining grand trees with grading or civil construction plans. We have a new staff member, about 6 months now, a landscape architect. He is fully capable of making sure the trees are protected and has been out on the site multiple times working on the variance. And number 5, the last one, is a total number of inches in approved mitigation would be no less than 596 inches, which is a large amount according to our landscape architect. And then we do not have any recommended conditions. If I can get past the slide. There we go. But we do have the applicants here if you have any questions for them. Do you have any questions for staff?
I just want to clarify the 596, that's equal to the number of inches they're removing.
It is very close. It's
Very close. It's been agreed upon. I just want,
Okay, yeah.
that was about where that number came from.
yes.
Okay.
I have a question. Can you,
Yes, sir.
I know that we're saying that there's no TIA required because these are just streets. But when I look at it, when I look at item 4, it reads, New Indigo Street provides access to a roundabout with the ability to provide future access points to the proposed future mixed-use development. Rattlebush Road terminates in a temporary cul-de-sac, also meant to provide access to future phases of development. And we know that there's also a proposed school in the area. Can you walk me through why, especially considering the short sight lines in both directions where they're proposing the termination, why there's no TIA required?
The school itself has to have a TIA. So their site plan has come in. We are working on dividing out the land for the school at this point. I actually have approved the plat for it. That does have road frontage. But the roads themselves aren't a use, they're just roads. So you can build a road to nowhere if you want to pay for it, as long as it's approved. Any usage on that road has to have a TIA. The school itself has a TIA, and they worked with the state very closely to make sure they had the correct access. One of the things the state was very concerned about was stacking, making sure that the stacking for the school is not on a county or city road kind of or state
Right.
road. So that was the way they developed that. They also wanted to make sure they didn't lock themselves into something later. So it was kind of a flexible way for them to create the roads they needed for the school, but not lock themselves into a situation that they couldn't.
So what happens if they fail the TIA and the road's already there?
They would not be able to build the school. The construction plans would fail.
So, Ms. Ray, are we being asked as a commission to look at this essentially as a road to nowhere?
Essentially, yes.
A road that's being built? Okay, as a road to nowhere.
There's no context. It's a road. That's all we're looking at. And the applicants did provide slides in the slideshow if you would be interested in having the applicant move forward, but it's not an open forum, so.
Does anyone have any additional questions or requests? Is there a motion on the table?
I motion it be approved.
Is there a
Second.
So there's a motion and a second. Is there any additional discussion? All those in favor? All those opposed? Okay. Moving on to rezoning 21-16.
Okay. All right, this is rezoning 2116 Vulcan Property Group LLC. This is on Gold Hill Road in the Fort Mill area. Tax map 651000084, 651000101, 107, and 121. So the request here is to rezone 4.44 acres from RD1 to BD3. They want to develop multi-use property, daycare, office building, bank, retail, and restaurants. That's what's shown on their site plan. Of course, that could change. Here's the vicinity map. It's on Gold Hill Road, just after the Gold Hill Road and Pleasant Road intersection. Here's an aerial showing that there is the campground behind the property. The current use of the property is single-family residential, so there are homes on those properties. Also to the wooded property, looks like to the east, that is commercial property. Hasn't been developed yet, but could be in the future. Over on the west, there is a church, and across the street, there is also a church. The property there that's shown as dirt, that is, I believe that is the urgent care facility. Not much here. The zoning, so RD1 is the current zoning. RD1 you see in the vicinity for the residential property, residential subdivisions, but it's not really appropriate along Gold Hill Road anymore. BD3, you see that within the Pleasant Road and Gold Hill Road intersection. You might recognize the Publix in that area. So there's BD3 right next to this property. Future land use for the property is neighborhood center. So that's going to be the more small-scale commercial uses. So here's the proposed site plan. You'll see that there's office building, there's a bank with a drive-through, there's a retail restaurant strip in the front, and there's also a daycare in the rear. Now this is all subject to change, but that's what's being proposed right now. So the future land use is neighborhood center, so small commercial areas, neighborhood serving uses, so dry cleaners, grocery stores, daycares, things like that. Small scale, so 30,000 square feet to 125,000 square feet, service area up to 3 miles, and a location along major and minor arterials or at their intersecting nodes. So we're recommending approval. This request meets the criteria just described. The property, it's less than 30,000 square feet. The buildings, individual buildings are. It's next to BD3 zone property already. It's on a major arterial, where single-family residential is no longer appropriate. Just as a note that as part of the site plan review, connectivity will be really important to integrate this property into the campground as it gets redeveloped or into the future commercial, not to the church, but to the future commercial, so that everything has a like one route that you come in. Okay, any questions?
So are you saying that when the campground is redeveloped, because I think it's for sale, as I recall,
My understanding it's got another 10 years on its lease.
oh, does it? Okay. So that back lane would stub out to that, and that would be the main entrance then if whenever that is developed, that it wouldn't come
That would
out?
be one of the entrances. I'm not going to say there's going to be the main entrance, it'd be one of them.
Okay. I saw that the TIA on there, I mean, many of us that live in the area know that that's not the best place to be in the morning. And it does speak to some monies going into a pot to, in the future, help to alleviate some of the congestion, particularly at Pleasant. Can you speak a little bit to how much is in that pot or where we are on that? Do you have those numbers?
There's only been one other project that's come in where we've collected, and I believe it's around 35,000 or so that's been collected for that particular project. And there's others that, we look to collect as well.
So being at 42.5, we're not quite halfway there yet.
No.
Or close. Okay. Are there any additional questions for staff? Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve, as noted.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Is there any further discussion?
I'm gonna vote against it because of traffic. See what happens.
Noted. All those in favor? All those opposed?
Okay. So next is rezoning case 2117, applicant Michael Cox, 3168 Hansmill Highway in Lake Wiley, tax map 553-0000092. So the request is to rezone 4.886 acres from RUD to BD1. They want to convert the existing school facility, which was previously a church before that, into a gymnastics center. So here's the vicinity map. You'll see it's located on Hansmill Highway at the intersection with Ferguson Long Road, which is a residential road that is mostly gravel. Here's an aerial showing the property. You'll see that the building in the middle, there's excess land there that could be developed or redeveloped into a larger, more intensive use. You'll see that there's residential surrounding this property. Property to the south, there's some overhead power lines. We'll get into that in a minute. Not much here. So the zoning map RUD is in the vicinity across the street, across Hansmill Highway, and adjacent to this property. The BD3 to the south, that is property that has power lines. It was rezoned speculatively for multifamily and limited commercial use back in '08. So it's been 12 years and it has not yet developed as BD3. So leading us to believe it's not viable. So the future land use is single-family residential in this area. So if you wanted some kind of a small-scale commercial use, you would have to be at some kind of a major intersection or next to existing commercial, which really, this doesn't meet that criteria. Proposed site plan just shows the existing buildings here, really just using the site as is. Some site pictures just showing the primary building and secondary building. It's a large metal building with a wood frame building to the side. It's got a gravel parking lot right now. The access off the Hands Mill is just a asphalt apron with gravel going into the property. Ferguson Long Road, it's combination of pavement and gravel, but mostly gravel going into the property. Next. More context, you have a mobile home across Ferguson Long Road. At the rest of Ferguson Long Road is residential property. The adjacent property on Hansville Highway that we say is not viable, you see the overhead power lines, they can't develop commercial on that frontage. Single-family home is across Hands Mill Highway, and that's RUD, and then Ferguson Road, you can see that it goes for a short bit as asphalt and then converts over to a gravel residential road. Next. All right, so the land use plan relationship, this is a single-family residential future land use that's predominantly neighborhoods of detached single-family housing, rural or suburban in character. Low-density commercial is appropriate at major intersections of major roads or adjacent to existing commercial. Next. So we're recommending denial of this request. So the denial is because the requested rezoning does not align with the comprehensive plan. The property is not located at a major intersection. It's at an intersection of a residential gravel road and Hansville Highway. And it's not adjacent to a existing commercial use. It's commercial land, but it can't be developed that way thanks to the power lines. The BD3 zone property to the south, like I said, it's not going to develop because of the power lines. The subject property, it's surrounded by single family. You have some mobile homes in there, some stick-built houses. The land beside it, like I said before, that's not going to develop as commercial. Should the proposed gymnastics center fail, not open or fail in the future, then that BD1 zoning opens it up to redevelopment. Could be a car wash, could be fast food, could be a convenience store, among other things. So we're really concerned about what could this property be should the gymnastics center fail, or should it not even move in the near future. So the BD1, once you make that rezoning, it opens up that box for you to do many different things. And we're concerned about those impacts on those surrounding residential properties. So the current RUD zoning, that allows for a school, a daycare, or a church. So school is the current use. It's the Lake Point Academy, which, as you see, is moving. It was previously a church, or it could be a daycare. So all of those uses are something that could be more compatible with that surrounding neighborhood residential uses. So that's our reasoning behind this. Now, should you decide that you want to approve this request, as we said, we're recommending denial. We're standing firm on that. But if you do want to recommend approval of the request, we put together 3 conditions for you to consider with that motion. So one condition is to limit the access. We want to have that curb cut removed off of Hands Mill Highway. The Lake Wiley Community Plan says that we want to manage the access along Hands Mill Highway. This would implement that policy from that plan. It would limit it to Ferguson Long Road, so you have one access in and out. The existing parking lot, we want that to be paved and striped according to county standards. That's to help with the condition of the property. It's got potholes and things like that, just to help it be a safer in and out. And then the last is just stating those improvements need to be completed prior to occupancy. with the new use. So those are the three conditions, should you decide to approve. So we recommend denial, but if you want to approve, we recommend these conditions. So any questions?
Yeah, Brian, so the property is currently zoned RUD. Is a gymnastics center allowed? It's obviously it's not allowed in RUD.
That's
Is
correct.
Is it something like they could get a special exception for?
It's
Or is
kind
it-
of like a school, right?
Huh?
It's kind of like a school. That's what I'm thinking.
Well, I understand, yeah, I understand that, but I was just wondering if there was another avenue within the code, because I know we can't say it's BD1 only as a gymnastics center.
That's correct.
So if it's BD1,
It's
it's
BD1.
all of BD1. But if there was another avenue they could go,
Then we
just
would've-
as a gymnastics center,
we would have gone that route. If we didn't
All
call
right.
rezoning, we wouldn't be here if they
Okay,
could do
yep.
that. But it does require a rezoning
I
to do
just have
this
to
use. Yeah. And they call that one out, the code calls that out as being a separate sort of indoor recreation, whether it's because they can have large tournaments and additional parking requirements and
That was gonna be
more than
another-
just being a school where they have classes there. They can do a lot more things there with the gymnastics center. But the code does call that out as being a separate use, not even just indoor recreation.
that was going to be another concern of mine, is if there was going to be tournaments there, because that's more than 11 trips a day.
Yeah. But they're not every day, but they can happen there.
But currently, it's a school, correct? And
It's currently a school.
currently a
That's
school,
correct.
and as a school, they could have tournaments there now, couldn't they?
They could.
Are the people here, the applicants here?
If you have questions for them, you can.
So
If the chair
Diane,
chooses.
yes, Diane, what constitutes a school? I mean, obviously, I know what constitutes a school, but I mean, I view this as, a place of learning.
Right, but the code does specify, there is actual use says gymnastics center. And so that's what this is. This is gymnastics center, and it can be done in those districts. That's what the code says. So they're coming in as a gymnastics center.
This is the school that, it was last month,
Yes.
so this is the school that,
This is they're leaving from here.
They're leaving
going-
from here, going over to the
Shiloh,
to the old golf
Shiloh Road.
course.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
They're moving there, and on this property, somebody wants to put in a gymnastics center, which requires a rezoning.
so that was a gym over there that's turning to a school, and now this is a school that wants to turn into
Yeah.
basically a gym. I just want to make sure I'm getting it right.
And if you remember, in the last rezoning, we were saying we want to remove the BD1 because of the impacts on the residential. And this is, we want to keep it residential so we don't have the BD1 impacts.
It's hard.
If it was called a gymnastics school, would that make a difference?
No, ma'am.
It's not so much that it's a school, it's that it
what's
opens it
taking
up
place.
to anything else.
I'm trying to formulate my question so I don't seem like an idiot, but, I mean, obviously, I believe these people should be able to open up their gymnastics place. And it just appears that all the big guys who come in here with gobs and gobs and gobs of money, we just approve them. We, as a board, approve them with many times the recommendation. And now we have a small man who's coming in who just wants to open up, and I don't know what his financial resources are, but, so I don't mean small in size or resources, but who wants to open up a gymnastics place, and we can't figure out how we can make this happen. So I would like to hear, if it's okay with the chairperson, with the from the applicant, if we can.
I have one more question for Diane, and I guess and/or Brian, just so we know. So it's a gym now, they would come in, operate as a gym. for some reason, it went away and something else came in, they're basically starting all over in the approval process, except the zoning is there, but they would have to get a new site plan or,
It's a school right now. The question is whether or not it would actually trigger any kind of site plan. They can actually move in right now as a simple change of use if it was an allowed use. And we wouldn't be able to capture anything with the site plan approval. That's why we wanted to make sure we had some conditions if you choose to consider this as being in favor.
my other point is that if the gymnastics goes away and it was redeveloped or another use was in there, that starts the whole approval process all over.
Not the rezoning process.
Not the rezon, the
Right.
zoning will be there.
Right.
But site plan, traffic.
Sure, so
all
say,
that
for
has to get
instance-
started all over.
Yeah, so for instance, if they came in here, the gym was here, they left, they sold the property to a car wash or something else, and they would do their site plan, but you wouldn't see this as planning
Correct.
commission. It's a
Correct.
by right zoning, so they could just go ahead and put in their other use. So we're protecting in the long range of what else could happen there if by chance the gymnastics center does not function, or they decide to, just go somewhere else.
Diane, this is the question I was gonna ask that I don't wanna seem stupid, but if they were opening up, say as a gymnastics and it was like a virtual school or charter school or something, if they were still using it as a school who, like Legion Academy, who focuses on athletics or something, would that be approved? Or,
It's actually its own RUD right now. So if they were going to actually do a school, Legion Academy, they would require a special exception from Zoning Board of Appeals as a school.
Okay.
So they would not do this by right. There was a change to the code done about maybe 2 years ago that requires a school, a special exception, and RUD. So they would not have by right in this property.
all right, my second question is, have you guys spoken to residents around the area, and what are their thoughts on this?
The public hearing has not happened yet.
Okay.
They have not been notified yet.
Thank you.
I think there are dates in
Yeah,
here.
I didn't know whether you guys had done some of that prior to. I know what's stated in here, but,
Yeah, like I
Just
said,
informally.
it's the next item on the calendar.
and maybe that's a question for the applicant, yeah.
Right.
Thank you.
So do you want?
Yeah.
Okay. Could you please come up and state your name and address for the record?
My name is Michael Cox. I live at 5971 Johnson Road in Lake Wiley, South Carolina. So currently there's a gymnastics studio in Lake Wiley that is in a building that's not zoned correctly, and they need to move out. And so my kids go to school there, and I've been looking for the last 18 months or so for a property that would suffice for them. And so when this property came available, I said, I think we might have an opportunity to move you guys to a building that you're allowed to be in. And so that's the reason why we're trying to get it rezoned to BD1. And as Diane said, it actually says gymnastics in the BD1 zoning. So I didn't know any way around that was to zone it for BD1 for gymnastics. It specifically says the word gymnastics for BD1. I'm not requesting BD3, which make the property even more, I guess, available to all different types of businesses. I did BD1 because the word gymnastics was in there. Nowhere, I thought about maybe I can make it, like you said, a gymnastics school, quote unquote school, but technically that's not right. I don't want to speak for the commission, but that's kind of the impression I got, was I need to go for BD1 for the school. So I'm just trying to help out a local business in Lake Wiley, continue to be a business for young kids in the area. That's all I'm trying to do. If that makes sense. Any questions? for
It
me?
does.
Thank you.
All right.
Have you spoken to the people in the local community around there? Have you had any informal conversations with the homeowners?
No, sir, I've not.
Okay, thank you.
Can you speak to the gymnastics place that's currently in some place they're not supposed to be?
I think it's a code enforcement case, if I'm thinking right. I think they're in the storage units. That's what I thought. I didn't know about that until you just said that. Oh, that's the place. Yeah, so they're currently in a storage building, like storage,
Yeah.
mini storages.
I have a recommendation.
I was going to
but
say, is there any further discussion or a motion?
I have, go ahead.
I'm just, I'm all for repurposing buildings, as much as we can versus new construction. Everybody complains about something else being cut down, and we have a chance to reuse a facility that's there right now. My only concern would be is if there were tournaments there, that is far more than 11 trips a day. I'd like to somehow see that be mitigated if that was the case. But I mean, I would want to be, I'm in favor of rezoning it otherwise. Because if anybody, and, you know, if there's an unfortunate circumstance where it gets redeveloped, at least we know if another use comes in, they have to start at the beginning of the site plan process, which is, you know, staff review, traffic study, so there's checks and balances there. But I'd like to, it's just.
Right, but unfortunately, that's not actually the case, right? Because once it's BD1, then anything BD1 can move in.
Anything BD1 can move in, but if they change the use, they would trigger traffic study, again, new site plan, you know, they would have to get a site plan
Sure, but the
approval.
use would still be there.
But
There
the use would still be there. Yeah,
So,
we're
yeah.
yeah, it does allow more uses, but
There will be some checks and balances.
yeah, there are some, and you know, it's, the other option is, you know, go find a site and clear cut for a building and parking lot.
As a person relatively new to the planning commission, what types of uses are under BD1? Doesn't have to be an exhaustive list, but.
Sure, I gave you a few here, but it could be any kind of an office. It could be something small like a yogurt shop or coffee shop. Brian, did you have any more uses? Did you pull up any from that list, by any chance?
What's written here is car wash, fast food, convenience store.
Right, and I chose the ones that might be the most impact on the neighborhood.
Okay.
But it can be something small as it could be a strip center. It could be, like I said, a coffee shop, a yogurt shop. It could be an office. So it could be a variety of uses. It's not nearly as large as BD3, which can get your gas stations.
Hotels.
That's the biggest one, or storage units. But they are things that the comprehensive, or the small area plan of Lake Wiley doesn't want to see more of, which is a car wash and a fast food store. So those were ones where the plan does not want to see more in the Lake Wiley area. So that's why I kind of pulled those things
Do
out.
we have any legal options to have the applicant agree to keep the property as is for a certain amount of time? Or not to sell it once we change it if something falls through? I mean, is there any?
Once the property is zoned BD1, it's
We're
zoned
done.
BD1. It goes with the property. We can't revert to something else or anything like that. That's
No,
the
but
new
can the county ask the owner not, I mean, can there be a legal restriction for a certain
Can they
number of
offer a deed
years?
restriction?
No, I don't think that works.
No, you can't. If you rezone it, then obviously that zoning will follow the property, no matter who it's sold to. And it would be outside our scope to try to put some restriction on it.
And I just want to mention too, with the current zoning, this does not leave just a vacant building. This is still an opportunity for a school, a daycare, or a church to come into that building, not just single-family residential.
Is there any additional discussion or questions for staff? Does anyone have a motion?
I have a motion. I have a motion that we approve rezoning with the recommendations that staff has, the 3 recommendations that staff has.
Is there a second?
A second.
Is there any additional discussion? All those in favor? All those opposed? Okay.
All right, rezoning 2118. Applicant here is Carol Williams. This is on Branham Road in Rock Hill, tax map 694000038. Whoops. So the request is to rezone approximately 10.35 acres from UD to RC1. They want to develop 6 lots out of the property, each with a single-family detached home. There were no mobile homes. Here's the vicinity map. It's a property, kind of a odd-shaped property off of Leslie Highway. Branham Road runs through the middle of the property. Here's an aerial. Currently, it shows a mobile home on there that's either being removed or will be removed. So the zoning map, you see there's some UD in the area. This was all part of the UD rezoning project. We were able to rezone some of the property to RC2. This property at the time was owned by somebody else, and they did not wish to rezone, but the applicant today wishes to rezone to RC1. The future land use is neighborhood residential. Proposed site plan, so there's going to be 6 new lots. 2 or 3 of the lots on here are existing, larger in the front, and the one in the back corner are existing. The Branham Road, it's shown on here that the road will become dedicated. Right now it's on private property. So the land use relationship, it's neighborhood residential, so that's single-family homes on medium to small lots. This is supportive of the neighborhood residential, so we support the request. This is going to be along an existing local road off of Leslie Highway, so that takes out the any kind of conflict points, no new conflict points. So that's something that we would support. Any questions?
If there are no additional questions, is there a motion?
I make a motion to approve.
Second.
All those in favor? Anyone opposed? Thank you.
So it's been a very busy summer for the planning department. Now, I kind of wanted to give you an update to where we are right now in our 2 very large projects we're working on. And I'm sure you may have been curious of where we stand with things. You've probably seen us, a few months ago, or it's been a couple months now, I've been bringing forward all those elements for the comprehensive plan. We've taken all your information and all your comments, and we have reworked, tweaked, moved around, reorganized, improved all of our goals and strategies for all the different elements. I think we've got the last one we're finishing up pretty soon. And once we do that, we're going to start working on the existing conditions and the trends and actually formulate the actual document. We've delayed it a little bit, kind of pulled back a little bit. We wanted to get some more census data, and that should be coming in the next couple of months to be able to go ahead and fill in some holes of where we are right now with the demographics. And we also wanted to make sure we weren't bringing forward you and a council 2 very large projects. It confuses a lot of people of the comprehensive plan and recode. So we're kind of stepping back a little bit for this one, just a bit of a pause. And but we should have the document done by the end of this year. And we will conduct a workshop with the Planning Commission to go over what we've done, look at our future land use map amendments. There's a few of those, but not a whole lot. There'll be some though. Look at the document itself and get your comments as a workshop. We will then do some public meetings. I think we should be able to open something up, hopefully in the winter, to be able to show the public what's going on and then get their comments and then bring it forward for adoption late, probably about March, I would say. We'll start bringing through the actual adoption process. So I just wanted to give you an update about that project. The other one is Recode. And so far, this has been very, very time intensive for staff to review the zoning code and the subdivision code. And we've had so far 2 webinars, and that was going over the first couple of modules. We have the last one coming on September the 30th to go over the subdivision code, which is now going to be called the land development code. We're going to have a special called PC meeting in October for review and your recommendation. We feel this is such a large project that we don't want to be part of an actual planning commission meeting. So at this moment, please reserve October the 25th. It's a Monday. And that will be the special called meeting for the planning commission to be able to review and discuss Recode. And you'll also provide your recommendation for approval, hopefully, and any kind of comments at that meeting. Council will work on it on the 26th, and they'll have their workshop the following day. We'll begin adoption as of right now is November the 1st with public hearing for Recode, and then have this completed by the first reading in December. We have one extra meeting in case we need some extra room, and then have this effective January the 1st. So if you want to go to recode.org, or I think it's org, you can get the link from the Planning Department's page. You can see what we've done so far. We'll be posting the third module probably within the next week or so to be able to read that one as well. So if you have any concerns or comments, you can always go and look at the Recode website for any information right now as it's being drafted. But it'll be a lot of things to go over, and then hopefully have a really good workshop on the 25th of October to get your comments and feedback. Any questions from anybody?
Is the comp plan, when you do the public outreach, are you going to do the webinars? 'Cause they don't seem to be,
No, probably not. I think for the comp plan, it's better to have, if we can hopefully be able to have some kind of public meetings, to be able to have a few throughout the county, and then meet with people and have them come and look at maps and look at text and that kind of thing. So they
Yes.
will be actually outreach, typical planning meetings that we normally have. All right, thank you.
So I think the last thing to look at is the zoning tracking sheet. Are there any questions or issues? If not, is there a motion to adjourn?
Before you adjourn,
sorry.
just one little comment, just as a reminder that we do have a training event coming up on Wednesday evening for those who want to attend. It'll be at Heckle Boulevard at 6 o'clock, talking about the missing middle. Be very interesting. If you want to join Jonathan, be looking forward to seeing any faces in the crowd. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Okay, all in favor? Have a good night.